Well, aloha kakahiaka, everybody. This is the pre-game show of the Aloha Friday Hawaii Real Estate Show. I'm your host, Peter Kay, and we are warming up right now. We got about 5 minutes or so to warm up. So if you're watching this pre-recorded, you can fast forward for about 5 minutes, or you can hang out with me and my good friends. We got Dylan Nonaka, who's on the Big Island. We got Heidi Dollinger, who's on Maui, and we got Scott Startsman, who's on Oahu. How y'all doing this morning?
Awesome.
All right. So Dylan, you've got a nice blank slate tabula rasa background. How's it going over there, buddy?
Yeah, I'm actually in Hilo today, so I'm using I'm in our we have like a shared workspace office in Hilo, so I'm using that for the show today. So it's not very fancy, but it's got good internet, and it's actually much nicer weather on the Hilo side today than the Kona side. It was some crazy storms yesterday, thunder, lightning, some flash flooding type rain, and Hilo has just been beautiful. It's a beautiful sunny day this morning. So just funny how
that's a flip, man. That's a flip, dude.
Yeah,
right?
Totally different.
Because you're always telling us how Kona's so perfect, and we all know that Hilo's rainy, and today it's just the opposite. Well, it is what it is. Heidi, how are you doing over there? Well, Heidi, first of all, what's the coffee of the day, and what's going on in Maui?
Well, I'm just enjoying my morning coffee. This is one of my go-tos. It's the red katuai. I drink this a lot. It's considered the Cabernet of coffee, so it's very good. Great way to start the day. And We're still seeing the whales out there, so that's just such a highlight for me this time of year. On Maui.
The whales, right. The Maui whales. Mm-hmm. That is definitely cool. So, and you mentioned that you got whales kind of right outside your house that you can go and see. Is that right?
Well, yeah. I mean, they're in the ocean, but I can see them in the distance.
Yes, the whales are not in the parking lot. I understand. Yeah.
Yeah, you can see them spouting. You can see their backs and reaching, some tail slapping. It's really fun to see them out there. They're such amazing creatures.
It really is remarkable. You can always tell there's a whale sighting on Oahu because everyone's pulled over the side of the road, and there's a whole bunch of people that are looking out, almost like when you go to Yellowstone and someone's spotting like a bison. Everyone pulls over the side of the road and you're all watching bison. Scott, man, what's going on? How's Oahu doing over there, man? How's our Diamond Head area happening?
It's a little overcast today. We've been getting some mixed weather, but I think I'm going to go buy some track shoes after this show because I feel like I've just been sprinting for the last month. But everything's good. Heidi's talk about the whales reminds me of when I used to live in Puako, or when I finish a project and I'm a little worn down from it, I'll go to Puako to relax, which is on the Big Island, and I'll stay in what I call our tree house, which is basically just a unit above the garage, but it's super quiet. And at night when I go to sleep, I can hear the whales spouting, and I can hear them smack their tails on the ocean. It's on the water. And they're ways out. I'm on the Mauka side of the road. I'm not even ocean front, but it's just such a really cool and amazing sound to hear.
I remember since Heidi got us on the whale subject, I think one of the coolest experiences I ever had with whales was I was swimming on the North Shore of Oahu, and underwater I was hearing whale song. And so to be underwater and to hear a whale song, that was really, really something surreal. Kind of one of these only in Hawaii kind of experience. It was totally cool. Totally cool.
If you ever go down to Puako on the Big Island, the Puako General Store is the only commercial property down there. My family actually developed it about 30 years ago. It was a resort zone property on the Mauka side of the street, and we downgraded it to commercial. But Naren he owns the building now, we sold it to him, but he used to run the store, and up on the shelf, you would walk in during the wintertime and he would have this little radio, and there must be some speakers that there's a radio station or something that he could connect to out in the water. And all it is doing is playing the whale sounds off the speakers. Cool. Really neat.
What a cool thing. Well, speaking of cool things, we have our friends who are joining us. And of course, Jim, we have to give Jim some kind of a trophy because Jim's like always, God bless you, Jim. You're the first guy on. Being nice, welcome everybody. Welcome back, Heidi. Jim says, "Welcome back, Heidi. We missed you from our last exciting episode, so welcome back on that." And Jeremy's with us. All right, Jeremy, Jeremy, if I recall correctly, you were coming here sometime soon, right? If I'm not mistaken, are you here yet? What's the date, Jeremy? Fill me in. That's what I recall vaguely. But hey, great to have you all here, and it is time. It's time to rock and roll with our show. So we're really glad to have you all back. Again, I'm your host Peter Kay, and you are on the Aloha Friday Hawaii Real Estate Show with my good friends. My good friends Dylan Onaka from the Big Island, Heidi Dollinger from Maui, and Scott Startsman from Oahu. This is a really fun show because we get to kind of bring you experts from across the state, which is really, really fun. So we're going to start a new segment, and let's get to this next slide over. All right, great. So we're going to shake it up a little bit. Where this is a news roundup, and the news started out as something kind of simple and just COVID only, but we're going to start doing a bi-weekly news roundup of Hawaii news. Here's what is cool going on in Hawaii for visitors or for people that are considering living in Hawaii. I got a couple of really neat things over here. First of all, we got looks like tier 3. We might be going to tier 3 on Oahu if things go well. So if you look over here, I got this little graphic. Right now we're on tier 2, but looks like we're qualifying to go to tier 3. This is going to mean, I got a quick excerpt over there, that they're going to allow larger crowds. Like, for example, most gatherings now are like 5 people max. So if we go to tier 2, and it looks like it's going to happen, God willing, it means that we've only got between 20 and 49 cases on a 7-week rolling average, and a 1 to 2.5% infection rate, again, on a 7-day rolling basis. Compare that to the rest of the country. I think Hawaii is doing really, really well. It's not come without its cost, but it is happening. So we're all kind of really excited about that. So that's the first one. The other one is masks are a big deal here. They're such a big deal. There's a little graphic over there that they're putting up banners on Kalakaua Avenue. Kalakaua is the main drag, if you will, in Waikiki on Oahu. And I think it's one of these kind of friendly, kind of quiet reminders for people that are visiting to wear their masks. Hawaii has taken on the mask thing culturally almost I don't want to say almost immediately, but people here have no problem wearing masks all the time. We even see people wearing masks in their cars with the windows rolled up. And I say, God bless them. So masks are a big deal over here. A lot of visitors who come over, despite the fact that they tested negative and they went through all the tests, they kind of apparently they're not wearing their masks. And so it's a big deal here culturally. The other big news is United. United is increasing their increasing their inventory, I suppose, of nonstop flights to Hawaii. Dylan, Kona is going to be. Looks like they're going to be on February 12th. Last week, they United opened up a nonstop flight going to Kona, and they're going to also open up a lot of 20 other nonstop routes. Nonstop into Hawaii. So this is a good indication that it seems like things are kind of loosening up a little bit. On Kauai, if you're going to be going to Kauai, make sure you plan it out, because Kauai seems to be changing things almost on a weekly basis. There's laws that are in motion. There's laws that Kauai wants to kind of change the rules, but the state doesn't want to let them do it, and the state's making some move to change it, and Kauai is rejecting it. I don't have a whole lot of details because the details change often, but just make sure that if you're going to be going to Kauai, you plan this out, and you plan it out carefully. Let's see what else we got over here. So there's let me do it this way. Okay, and then the other one is a health pass. Looks like there is Hawaii is looking up to set up what's called a health pass. This health pass will be used to verify not just whether you've got negative tests on COVID, but also whether you've been vaccinated. Apparently, there's an organization called Clear, some sort of a nonprofit organization that's developing an app, and this app that this organization is developing is going to be one that apparently it looks like it's going to be something that people will be using a lot in Hawaii to verify that you've had your vaccination, or verify that you've had your tests and you've tested negative. So those things, it seems to be in motion. Again, this seems to be going towards a trend that we're seeing, that showing that you're vaccinated or showing that you've tested negative is going to be a simple and big thing in Hawaii. Looks like they're going to be loosening more and more things, especially to those who are vaccinated, as more people get vaccinated in the country. What else is going on here? Oh yeah, a couple of things over here. First of all, I got the weather. I know that you're all having a hard time with the weather there through most of the U.S. mainland, and so I kind of wanted to ask for your sympathy while we too in Hawaii suffer through horrible days, highs of only 78. It's absolutely freezing, and our lows are down to 70. That means we have to close a few of our windows. We can still leave a few of our windows open. Some of us even wear long sleeve shirts. Some people wear sweatpants. It all depends. So I just want to ask for you all, bear with us here while we suffer through some terrible weather. Of course, I'm joking, right? Okay, sorry about that. I hope everyone stays safe. I know we have some friends in the Ohana. The Islander Ohana has a bunch of members who are in Texas, and I hope they're all Kinaya and group. Jess and Wes, hope you all are having a safe over there, and hope the power gets restored and you're doing well. I know they're from Austin, Texas, and they're having a hard time. And then finally, a little bit of a fun thing here. Don't bribe the screener. So this one was fun. There's a story that we had some folks from Louisiana who were visiting Hawaii, and they tried to bribe they tried to bribe the screeners at the airport to get by. Maybe that's the way you do it in Louisiana. My understanding of Louisiana is there's a lot of, bribery is sort of like a normal thing. And maybe they kind of thought that, hey, if it's good in Louisiana, it's good in Hawaii. Not so in Hawaii. And those folks got arrested. So don't bribe the screener is our little thing for today. So that's a quick news roundup. Let's go kind of a quick around there, real fast around our little statewide. We'll go Dylan, and then Heidi, and then Scott. Any kind of news you want to kind of add into that's occurred? We'll talk about real estate later, but any kind of news specifically that you want to add, Dylan?
It's just like it's always been. I mean, crazy busy with no inventory. It's a major problem right now. We're down like 50% on inventory. We're fluctuating just around 20 listings under $1 million in the Kona market. I mean, it's interesting because the ones that are on the market are like 70 plus days, and then everything else is like less than a week, because if it's been on the market a week and it's good, it goes under contract. So it's the stuff that's overpriced or in really bad shape that's been on the market, more than 2 months. So there's this huge gap where there's no inventory that's been on the market, between 10 days and 70 days. It's everything sells almost immediately. And just the stuff that's kind of junky stays on the market. So really interesting times.
So I think your summary from the last few shows has been it's bananas. Are we still at a banana? Is it still going bananas? Sounds like still bananas.
It is. I mean, regularly wrote an offer a few days ago, 50,000 over asking price, and didn't even get offered backup position. So I must have been in third or fourth place. So that's what's going on.
Wait. Hold on a second. 50,000 over asking price, and you didn't even get a call back. Is that what you said?
Yeah, just so it said thanks, we went with somebody else. Didn't even get offered backup position. So, and that's on a $900,000 home, So I mean, it's not. I mean, 50,000 is pretty significant on a house under $1 million. So.
Boy, you're not kidding. Wow, that's amazing. Yeah. Heidi, what's going on there? What other news do you have to kind of share, or what's going on with the real estate market in Maui?
Well, the real estate market on Maui has just been extremely, extremely active. I mean, that's almost an understatement. In January, number of condominiums going under contract increased 65%. Single family homes going under contract increased 25%. And if there was more inventory, we'd be selling a lot more. It's really competitive out there. And I don't really see this stopping, because then I'm talking to other buyers that are saying, well, as soon as I get vaccinated, I'm going to come to Maui and buy something. So I think there's just a lot of demand right now. It's a really busy market, but it's been fun. It's been fun. There's still opportunities, but you kind of need to know where to look. And I'm helping a lot of buyers, trying to find inventory, because it's not necessarily just on the market. So yeah, busy time for realtors.
It seems like realtors are just, the real estate market is going crazy. Hey, Dylan, we got a quick comment from Jim that your volume is kind of low. We're going to go to Scott, but while Scott's doing his thing, try check. There's a setting in the cam mic area where you can have it automatically adjust mic volume. Make sure that's checked on. And if that is checked on, you may need to just kind of hold your microphone a little bit closer to you, because we know that you're on remote locations. Just kind of maybe hold the mic closer to your mouth when you talk, so that everybody can hear you loud and clear. Because I know we all want to hear what Dylan's got to say. I need my Dylanisms, and those Dylanisms got to be loud and clear. Scott, what's going on Oahu?
Yeah, I wanted to mention a little bit about the masks are pretty much commonplace over here. I had a conversation with someone yesterday, and we look out for each other here. Family is important. I think it goes back to actually, how the culture that is here, and that we do look out for each other. That mask, if you're not wearing a mask, it can be frowned upon. Definitely. If you're out walking on the sidewalk by yourself, maybe that's one thing. But I think part of the reason why we've done so well, and when people come over here, they should expect to wear a mask. It's a respect thing for the others around you. A lot of people are multi-generational, living in houses with, grandparents, parents and stuff. And it is expected and frowned upon if you're not wearing masks around the people, and you look at it more as, hey, I got a personal freedom, I don't have to. Here, people don't look at it that way. They look at it as, hey, I have a responsibility to the others in my family and the others in my community to keep them safe as well. So it is a common practice to wear masks here.
Yeah, well said, Scott. I completely agree with you. It's definitely a cultural. It's part of the island way. It's totally a reflection of the culture. And I would also, yeah, for sure. What's going on with the real estate market, Scott?
Yeah, so it's insane over here. I mean, the single family home side, I'll touch on it real brief, and I'm going to actually talk about condos. Single family homes are up 15% in price for January. So that limited inventory I was talking about, and I said, hey, we're at 1 month of inventory, which is back to where our 2007 market. I said, hey, I anticipate us having 10+% price appreciation this year. Well, first month, 15%, we're up. So it's hitting what I expect to. And to give you a perspective, property listed at 1.375, private deeded beach access, beautiful architecture. We came in 75 grand over asking. They came back to us and said, you were tied with another offer, repeat it. And we came in, we got it at 150 grand over asking. So that kind of gives you
wait, back up for a sec. This property listed for how much?
1.375.
1.375. So Dylan, you got beat out. Scott, not you, but Scott beat Scott's offer had to beat you were 50K over $1 million, and Scott had to go to 150 over a 1.5 property. There you go.
Yeah. So that's perspective on the single family home side. It's very busy. It's very competitive. What I'm telling buyers on the single family home side is not only be prepared, but be patient. Because the other thing that I'm seeing is, hey, we may miss out on a home, and then it's like 2, 3, 4 weeks before the next one comes up that appeals to, that's similar, that appeals to what you may like. The number of new listings coming on, or the inventory coming on, is slower than what I would expect in a busy market like this. So there is an element of patience, which means if you're a buyer also moving over here, you need to extend your time frame that you may anticipate for needing to look for homes. On the condo side, so now what I'm seeing is more movement in the condo side, and condo prices actually are up 5% for the month of January. So people are either outbid, out competed on, outpriced in the single family home side. They're starting to move to the condo side. Townhouses are still really busy, but the condos are starting to move more. Anything under 750,000 is moving pretty quickly. Waikiki is the buy. And I feel like condos in general, high rises in Metro Honolulu, that's where your good opportunities for not being outbid on stuff, where you can get a good deal still. But it's definitely changing. It's starting to move in that direction for condos.
So I hear you say that the market's really hot, but yet Waikiki is kind of where you still could find a deal, where you still can get an offer in, where you won't be competing, where you won't have to put over list and things of that nature. Is that right?
That's correct. And anything over $1 million in Waikiki or even Kaka'ako is significantly slower. You're going to have negotiation ability. Most other areas, you might have a little bit of negotiation ability, but it's 1 to 2% off the list price, maybe.
Got it. Thanks. Hey, great. Thanks. I appreciate that. Let's before we move on, I want to say a hello to a bunch of our friends that are giving us shout outs over there. So Tom, aloha everybody. Aloha Friday. It's not Happy Friday, Tom. It's Aloha Friday, man. And welcome to the Aloha Friday Hawaii show. Glad to have you here. Christopher, happy Aloha. See, Chris has got it right. Happy Aloha Friday, everyone. Yes, happy Aloha Friday, Chris. Welcome. Glad to have you here. Judy Everett Weber. Happy Aloha Friday. She's got it. See, this is the slang, man. It's happy Aloha. It's happy Aloha Friday. And Dwayne, hello from Kentucky. Be there in June. All right, Dwayne. That's cool, man. Dwayne, where are you going? You're going to go to the Big Island? You're going to go to Maui? You're going to go to Oahu? Tell us where you're going. Going to Kauai. Great to have you all here. Excellent, great gang. It's just really fun doing this. I'm really kind of enjoying this. All right, let's move on. I thought it would be good today to talk about is Hawaii a remote worker paradise? The remote worker thing is a big thing. It's been happening kind of since COVID sort of got started. And I kind of wanted to have a discussion between us. I threw a couple of bullet points here, but we can kind of take this conversation anywhere that you want to go. There's a whole class of people, right? These remote workers, and they come from a variety of walks of life. Some of them are permanently, some people have said, hey, I am now a permanent remote worker. I will essentially never go back into the office again. I could kind of live wherever I want. That's kind of one category. The other ones are, well, we're remote workers. We may have to come into the office, once a quarter, once a month or so. And it's, it's, for the cost of a flight, it's worth it. I'd rather live in Hawaii. So there's a couple of, and there's other categories as well, I'm sure. But I guess the question I wanted to have to go around the table here is, what should remote, there's a lot of things, we all take for granted. And I think the Texas, the Texas tragedy of the storms really kind of gave us an idea about that. As people that live in a modern society, we kind of expect every time that you turn the light switch that the lights are going to go on. We expect that, when you turn on the stove, if you've got gas, the flame's going to pop, right? Or you're going to be able to heat up your food. We expect these things to be working. We expect internet to always be working. There's a lot of things that we come to expect in our society. We expect the sewers are going to be working. We expect that roads are there. There's an near infinite amount of things that we expect to be there. And we don't think about making sure that they're there when we're looking at moving somewhere or buying somewhere, etc. So I kind of wanted to kind of get a sense from you folks of, from your knowledge and from people that you've sold homes to for remote workers, what are some things that we tend to take for granted, especially remote workers tend to take for granted, that they should be considering before they buy a house in Hawaii? What are the pitfalls? A pitfall that pops in my head is, Dylan, you live on the Big Island, and we had a great episode about kokies, the koki frogs at our last exciting episode. And for example, if you've got a remote worker and you're doing phone calls at night in Hilo and you got koki frogs, you're not going to like that. That's not going to work out for your remote workers. That's just an example. So with that as the setup, let's talk about remote workers. Dylan, what advice, what pitfalls, what things should remote workers that are considering the Big Island, what should they be thinking about?
Well, definitely one aspect is time zone. So, if you're not an early riser and you're working on mainland time, that could be something that could be a good thing or could be a bad thing. I've had several clients buy over the last few months that are remote workers that actually really like the fact that they can get up at 3 a.m. and really be done working by lunchtime, and then have the rest of the day to go to the beach and enjoy Hawaii and just kind of reset your clock, where you just got to go to bed a little bit earlier because your day starts a little bit earlier. But that's definitely an advantage, where your work day isn't necessarily in the core hours of the day. You can get that work day done earlier in the morning and then enjoy the rest of the day. So that's one thing, is just that your time zone. But other than that, I mean, we have very good, reliable, I think we've talked about it in the past, internet pretty much everywhere. I mean, unless you live very remotely and really off the grid, our internet availability is very high speed, and there should be no issues there. And of everyone that I've personally sold a property to that is a remote worker, I mean, I don't get any negative feedback. I mean, most of them are making it work, and they're really enjoying it, and they're really happy, especially in situations like now in the mainland, where they're here enjoying the weather and not having to worry about outages due to snow, right? I mean, that's something, we have weather issues here once in a while. I mean, there's always potential for hurricanes. It doesn't happen very often, but you're guaranteed going to get winter storms in the Northwest, right, or Northeast almost every year. So there's sometimes we're more reliable here than you would be somewhere else in terms of internet availability.
So what I hear you saying, Dylan, is unless you're going to go to some remote location, if you're going to go into, normally sort of, if you're going to go into kind of normally populated areas, shouldn't be a problem. Internet is internet's there. Yeah. Well, let's talk about power later, because I got UPS units, battery backup units on every electronic device in my house, but we'll talk about that later. Heidi, what kind of things should remote workers that are coming to Maui be looking for? Is there anything specific about Maui that you need to kind of be aware of, look out for, account for, etc.?
I mean, not in particular. Most of the people that I know that are clients and friends that are remote workers are just really liking the work-life balance of getting the workday done early in the morning and then going out and surfing or spending time with kids and family in the afternoon. So as long as you like waking up early, that tends to work out really well. I mean, we're 5 hours behind New York, 2 hours behind LA right now, 4 hours behind Chicago. Another advantage too is being in Hawaii, you're less likely to get those really late night work calls if you're here because everybody else is, hopefully sleeping by the time your day is done. So yeah, I would say the one thing to think about is it can be a little isolating being a remote worker wherever you are. So, I mean, you do want to make a point to get to know your neighbors and get involved some way in the community. And that's going to help it really feel like a home if you're moving here. I mean, we have a great culture, a great community. So I would encourage people not to, totally isolate themselves from all that.
That's a good set of advice. Let's move on to Scott. Scott, what are your tips and insights for remote workers looking at Oahu?
Yeah, I think this is probably one of the best places on the planet to do it from. I mean, the work, like Heidi said, the work-life balance is amazing. And because our temperatures so consistent all year round, I mean, I jokingly will take a screenshot of the weather for the week and send it to people, and it varies by 1 degree per day throughout the entire week. So we're between the 70s and the upper 80s throughout the year. So we don't have the ice storms, things such as that cause power outages or loss of internet. In doing so, if you do lose the internet, you go surfing for a little bit to get that work-life balance and blow off some steam that something went wrong. It's a great place to live. I would probably say a couple of the things to think about, like Dylan mentioned, is the time zone change. And then if you do have to commute, I feel like Oahu is the perfect place because you got the schools, you got a big city, the best schools, medical help, or the medical centers here are the best. You have a regular city. So if you do have kids and things and you have activities, this is a great place for it. You get the significant cultural and restaurant diversity and activities over here on Oahu. And your flights out of here are going to be more direct to more places. That is the one thing to consider, though, if you're coming from New York and you do have to commute periodically back and forth there, how is that? Do you really want to do that? How are you going to handle it? Otherwise, I think it's a perfect place to be.
Yeah, it's interesting. I love all your perspective on this. I'm going to add mine from a more technical point of view. I've been essentially a remote worker for the past 10 years. We built a home office a while ago, and we were essentially working remotely for just about all of our clients. So a couple of things that I would add on that is that the time zone thing is really awesome. I've got a good friend who was one of the first members of the Ohana before I formalized the Ohana, and we become good friends. We surf together at Makapu every so often, and he has a practice where his job has been was to make phone calls at dinner time. So his rhythm was making East Coast dinner time phone calls to reach out to his clients. So dinner time figures 6 o'clock Eastern. So Heidi, to your point, Eastern is either 5 or 6 hours behind Hawaii. So now instead of him having to make calls at dinner time, his dinner time, 6 or 7 p.m., he makes calls at 1 o'clock in the afternoon or at noon, and absolutely loves it. So he, drops off his kids, does his calls, which is dinner time on the mainland. And then, by 2 or 3 o'clock in the afternoon, he's completely done and completely free. So it's totally awesome. On the technical side, I would say this. I would say that I don't know about you guys on the Big Island in Maui, but here, the power, I would call that not. The reliability is not stellar. So if there's winds, see, they're all smiling because they know what I'm talking about here. Winds come, boom, power goes out. There was an accident. Somebody hit an electrical pole a couple weeks ago, right, Scott? Remember that? And power was out for the whole day for 10,000 customers. So the power here is not terribly reliable. I mean, it's good, but it's not completely reliable. So as a result, as I mentioned this, I touched on this earlier, I've got battery backup units for every single electronic device in my house, my TV, my Xbox, my, the audio system, of course, the computers, if it's electronic, it's got a battery backup. And there are a lot of times when it'll blip, the power is going to blip and it trips, you hear all the battery backups go beep, 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 and you continue just fine. So that'd be one thing I would consider. From a remote worker standpoint, I would also consider your environment. I did make the it's not a joke, the reality about the coqui frogs. For example, coqui frogs on the Big Island, right? If you're going to be making calls late at night, you're going to have late night calls with whoever, and you got coqui frogs, it's going to screw up the microphone.
Or at my house chickens, right? You hear the chickens crowing in the background at my house.
But I got to tell you, there's something totally cool about having roosters crowing while you're on a call, right? Because that's like somebody that most people don't have that experience whatsoever. But yeah, very well said. If you got roosters crowing in the morning because you're going to make morning calls. I actually I had a bunch of my clients will tell me this, oh, Peter, we love talking to you because whenever you're on the call with us, we hear the birds outside. I'm like, yeah, that's right, man. You hear the birds. But there are those environmental issues. So you do need to be aware of that. You need to kind of be aware of your environmental place because Hawaii is awesome. You don't want to have to seal up the room to get onto a call. You're maybe used to sealing up the room on the mainland because it's always too hot or too cold, but here it's always perfect. We want to have like right now, my windows are open. So those environmental issues would be something. And then finally, on the internet is pretty ubiquitous, but if you have certain specific internet needs, if you need to go beyond just kind of the typical bandwidth like a Zoom call, if you need to have high download speeds or high upload speeds because you're doing some additional work, and if you do that, you're kind of technical anyway, but you would want to find out from the internet provider. We have two main internet providers here across the state. Spectrum does it through cable service, and then we have the phone company Hawaiian Telecom, who does it through let's say the traditional phone network. Those two offer various internet services. Those are the two main providers. You want to find out what's available. The speed and performance does change on a neighborhood by neighborhood basis. There's a lot of factors that will affect it. So you want to be aware of that if that becomes an issue. I think we've beat this issue up about enough, and I think we're ready. I'm bored myself over here. Let's move on. But let's do a couple of more quick shout outs over here. Let's see from the last. Let's see. So we got Kevin over here. Here's a shout out to you, Dylan. So Kevin says, Dylan finds me a house within the next few months. He wrote a very aggressive offer, and I'm the one of those who lost it by $50,000 or more. So Kevin, we feel your pain, right, Dylan? I'm sure you're helping out Kevin on that one. Let's see who's next here. We Robert H. Aloha, Fred from Northern California. Aloha to you. Oh, and Dwayne has got family on Oahu, and that's why he's coming here in June. That's totally awesome. Jackie, aloha back to you, Jackie. Dylan's volume is perfect, and there's Kinaya, just made it. So Kinaya is a member of the Ohana, and Kinaya, where you are in Texas, and I'm glad that you are safe. I was kind of worried about that. We're getting some reports from you that you had lost power and heating. That's got to be scary. I had a friend of mine who said, when it's too hot, it's uncomfortable, but when it's too cold, it hurts. And I would say that is absolutely true. All right, let's move on to our next topic over here. And this is another one of these roundup topics I want to talk about. We get a lot of people who are always asking about tiny houses. So we got a few over here. So Justin from Virginia said, are there affordable plots of land and can you live tiny house style? My wife grew up there in the military and now most of our kids are out of the house. We're considering moving there. Or Natasha from Dallas said, hey, in doing price comparisons of buying a home versus a condo, I'm thinking more and more about buying a tiny house. Is tiny house living permissible in any of the islands? If so, what are the rules, regulations, and the costs associated? Thanks. And then finally, Alexandra in Washington, D.C. says, are tiny houses becoming more popular in the islands? So there's a bunch of questions about tiny houses. We've touched on this earlier, but let's do a roundup on this again. And Dylan, why don't we start with you? When people say, "Hey, what about tiny houses?" What's your response?
So actually, on my YouTube channel, I have a pretty detailed interview with a tiny house builder here on the Big Island that we go through a lot of these questions in detail. And I'm happy to connect anybody who wants to talk to him. I'll connect you with him so you can have a discussion directly because they have the most details. But in general, the thing that you got to understand about tiny homes is they're not technically homes. They're technically RVs because they build them on a trailer and they're movable. So that's one thing in terms of cost that makes them cost effective is that they're not a fully permitted, doesn't have architectural drawings, and that's what is one of the reasons why they're affordable. And so that also means that they're not a permanent structure. So there's some implications with that. You definitely can go through the process of getting them permitted and making them a permanent structure, but the costs are going to be higher. So sometimes you lose some of that cost benefit that you're looking for. But one of the things that you need to consider is that the electric company will not hook up grid power to a non-permanent structure. So what a lot of people are doing with tiny homes is they are putting them on properties that are already built. So, on a family property or a home that's already there, adding kind of a second non-permanent dwelling to a property and then hooking up to their wastewater, their water, their electric, and then using it as a guest home or an Airbnb or just as a second dwelling. So there's a lot to consider. It's not as simple as some people hope it would be, but it definitely can be done. I do know that my buddy Chad, who builds, he's from Mockingbird Tiny Homes. If you want to look him up online, he's extremely busy, like book 3 to 6 months out in terms of builds. He can build about 3 or 4 of them at a time. But they are gaining popularity because there is very affordable land on the island, and you can get a very nice tiny home for under $100,000. I mean, decked out with granite countertops and a full kitchen, and it's really amazing the kind of stuff they can do. They can go as simple or as custom and high end as you want with a tiny home. So definitely my recommendation would be to talk to, especially for each island, the actual county zoning rules and regulations vary from island to island. So you want to talk to somebody specifically on the island who's dealing with it and ask your questions and make sure it works.
So kind of what I'm hearing you say, kind of quick summary, Dylan, is that it seems to be a lot of people are doing it for adding on a structure to an existing property that has existing utilities, water, home, etc., and kind of pipe this one in and add some kind of an additional dwelling. Whether or not it be the first dwelling you put on a property, that seems almost like you can't do it, at least on the Big Island, because the utility will not hook up power to a what you called it, a
non-permanent structure.
Non-permanent structure. Thank you. It's a trailer, so it's seen as a trailer.
And one other thing, very important consideration is financing, right? Some people want to get a tiny home because it's cheaper, but do you have the cash to pay the 60, 70, 80,000 that it's going to cost? Because you can't get a residential loan. There are private lenders, rates are a little bit higher, terms are a little bit different. Again, tiny home builders will have those connections. But if you're thinking about using a VA loan or some kind of FHA loan or something like that, that's not going to be an option because it is not a permanent residence. So that's one thing you got to consider also. Got it.
That's a great angle. Okay, let's get the Maui angle. Heidi, are tiny homes becoming a thing on Maui? What's the, why would you want one or not want one? What's that all about?
Well, a lot of what Dylan said about the Big Island applies to Maui too. I mean, so you want to look at the zoning because Maui County zoning will determine how many dwellings are allowed on a parcel of land. And also any residential structure where people are living needs to have a building permit, and you would need also electric, wastewater, and plumbing. I mean, if you were going to tie into utilities. So, I mean, I think the way that tiny homes work is if it's on a wheeled trailer and completely off grid, or perhaps on a property with existing structures. So it's not as easy as I think a lot of people would like, but I mean, it is possible if that's the lifestyle that you're looking for. Now, it's probably not going to work in an established neighborhood or residential area. This is something you'd find, probably more in a more rural area.
Excellent. Yeah. Thanks, Heidi. I appreciate that. Again, you got this allure. You think, oh, tiny house means, cheap, tiny. I could get a tiny land and a tiny house and a tiny price and a tiny cost. And it's not that tiny all the way around. Scott, I have not seen tiny houses proliferate on Oahu, but then again, I don't look for them either. What's the deal with what's going on with tiny houses?
Yeah, well, part of the whole concept with tiny house is affordability as well. And one of the questions that was there is there affordable land on Oahu that you can buy to put a tiny house on? And the answer is no, not really. I mean, you're probably spending $400,000 minimum for the land. Hawaii is unique. We're out in the middle of the Pacific. If you look at it, we're a dot on the map. and we're limited in land. So our land is always the most expensive thing when it comes to the housing side of things. The structure itself is typically not worth as much as the land. So there's that challenge alone. I could see this more on the Big Island. And the main thing to understand with the tiny house portion is it's actually more, you go and get you pay your fees and stuff to the Department of Motor Vehicles. You don't go through the planning department because it's not considered a permanent structure. So, it's my understanding you could probably get them about $70,000. That's where they start and go up from there. And then you got to take into consideration how you do the water. Are you doing catchment, solar off grid, then your wastewater? I can't imagine you're going down. If you're not a permanent structure, you can't go down to the Department of Health and get a septic system approved because they're like, what are you tying into this? Oh, motor vehicle? Wait, what? That doesn't make sense, right? So you have to look at it as if it's a Department of Motor Vehicles kind of thing and plan around that side. And then affordability becomes a challenge. It's not very popular here. I don't see it. I haven't seen any, actually.
That's what I was thinking. I haven't seen any on Oahu.
Yeah. And CCNRs are going to come into play. If you
what's
go into
CCNR? What's a CCNR?
They're covenants and restrictions on what you can do on that land that are going to be greater than city and county building codes. So if you go into a subdivision somewhere where they have restrictive covenants, that they're probably not going to allow for this type. So you got to be really careful. I can easily see this much more on the Big Island, Hawaiian Ocean View, some of those places, but Dylan can kind of talk about that.
Yeah, got it. And speaking of birds, speaking of sounds, Scott, I love the bird sounds. I love it. The sounds great. I love it's the sweet little bird sound. So good. I think that's about. I think we've touched base on anything else on tiny houses. If anybody else wants to add anything in, jump that one in. But that's been a topic that we're gonna kind of break this one out as a segment and. So everyone knows. So Dylan, thanks. Go ahead.
Scott touched on it, but that's another very important factor in the cost analysis of this is say you do build a septic system that you tie into without approval, right? That can be $25,000. If you're going to be off the grid because you can't hook up the Helco, to get a system that is going to run a regular home is probably going to be $25,000 to $30,000 minimum for a solar system. And then you got to build a catchment system if you're not tied up to water, which could be $5,000 or $10,000 for a good catchment system and tank. So those are all costs, again, that you're not necessarily going to be able to finance it to some type of loan and could be upfront costs. So cash available may be an important factor in all of this from a financing perspective.
And it's my understanding you can go and get like a personal line of credit potentially and finance it that way, but you're not doing a home loan because it's not considered a permanent structure that's been permitted.
Right.
Yeah.
You can get a credit. You can finance it on your credit card, if you will, if your credit card, if your limits is that big. Yeah. Got it. Nina chimed in. Tiny houses are either post and pier or on trailers, which require DMV rules. That's exactly right. If it's a DMV's Department of Motor Vehicle, if it falls under a whole set of rules, and just like with Department of Motor Vehicles, you can't get home loans on your vehicle. You can't get hookups on your vehicle. You can't hook into the septic system, et cetera. So yeah, what I'm getting out of this is it's complicated. It's not as simple as you might think it is. Just because it's tiny doesn't mean it's cheap. And there's a bunch of overhead that's associated that you got to get done no matter what size house that you have to get at the end of the day. But it might be for you. You want to kind of talk with people who know what they're doing. And that's why I'm so grateful to have people like Dylan, who's on the Big Island, and Heidi, who's on Maui, and Scott, who's on Oahu. We're giving kind of the full statewide view. Thanks, everyone. Really appreciate all the input. All right, let's
and one more quick perspective on cost.
Sure.
Places like Scott's talking about, the places, the rural places where you would do something like this, where you can get a plot of land for $10,000 or $20,000, you can get a brand new house pretty much between $200,000 and $300,000, right? With all of the utilities put in and a home already built. So when you kind of add up the costs, you almost get somewhere near that, right? You can easily spend $100,000 just in the tiny home. Then all of the additional stuff that you need to make it livable could run you another $100,000. Now you're in like a $200,000 range where you could just buy a full, an already built home in the same exact area.
And with the already built and with the full built home, don't forget, a tiny house is by definition tiny. So, you drop maybe 200,000 as opposed to 100,000, 100,000 for a tiny home, 200,000 for a quote real home. And what, you've got 2 bedrooms, maybe three bedrooms, a bathroom, a full shower, a full kitchen, a backyard, a porch, a front door, a back door, windows, lots of windows, all kinds of all those great conveniences. So yeah, absolutely great. So Ron says, don't forget daylight savings time. So Ron Reese says, don't forget daylight savings time, referring, Ron, I'm assuming, to the whole commute, the remote worker thing. Yes, we switch between daylight savings time. We during the year, it either fluctuates. Like, for example, Heidi, who, like myself, was born in the Midwest. Right now, it's 4 hours behind. During the summer months, it's going to be, it's 4 hours, right? Yeah, I should know this. Hello, 4 hours behind or 5 hours behind in the summer months. East Coast is 5 hours and 6 hours in the summertime. And if you need to reach, there is the downside to this whole thing is that it can work against you as well. I've got a handful of clients, on the East Coast, and when they need to do their morning meetings, that means I'm up at 3 o'clock in the morning on my end. I can't do too many 3 o'clock. I can't do too many 3 a.m. meetings. I'll do a few, but I don't want to make it a habit. That's for darn sure.
Hey, the reverse of that is great. When it's 8 p.m. here, you can call your friends and family on the East Coast at 2 in the morning and harass them.
That is true. Good point. All right. Thanks, everybody. Let's move on to our next one here. Precautions for sight unseen. Many of Dylan and Heidi and Scott, you have all mentioned that you have sold properties, quote, sight unseen. And I kind of want to bring this up a little bit to talk about it on this and anything else that you have to say about that. This one says, from Rich from Oregon says, I'm looking to purchase property, land, no structure, sight unseen. What precautions do you recommend for such a purchase process? What recommendation? What if I find a property with a structure? So let's talk about this overall. If you're going to be buying sight unseen, what's the typical profile that you've seen that's been successful in buying sight unseen? And what kind of recommendations would you have for someone sight unseen? And this is the Maui background. This is by the way, folks, this view here is sunrise over Haleakala, which is an amazing trek you all need to do at least once in your life on the bucket list. Heidi, first of all, have you ever been to the Haleakala sunset? I'm sure you have. I want a Haleakala sunrise. I want to hear about that. And then tell us what to think about on sight unseen purchases. You're muted. There you go.
Well, first of all, I definitely recommend watching the sunrise on Haleakala. You will have to wake up really early for that, but it's totally worth it. And it is one of the places on Maui where it is extremely cold. It's about, I think, generally about 40 degrees up there. So bring your jacket. But you can also bike down Haleakala, which I've done a couple times, and I highly recommend that too.
How is that? I saw that. I always wondered about that. Is that fun?
It is. So you start at the top. The first part of the bike ride it can be a bit scary. There's a lot of switchbacks. And this is not a bike ride where you're really exerting yourself. You're basically rolling down a hill and trying to brake so you don't run off the road for most of the time. But you start up in Haleakala and you just get to see so many different parts of Maui, and you go through upcountry, and you can really take your own pace too and stop at different places to eat and check out farms and things like that. So it's really fun. I've done it a few times, and I highly recommend it.
I'll have to do that. All right, let's get down to business there. Sight unseen. Heidi, what's your advice for sight unseen? What are precautions? What are things, what works, what doesn't work? What's your advice?
Well, first of all, really great question. Especially during last year, 2020, I had quite a few sight unseen sales. I would say the most typical profile of the sight unseen buyer for me has been somebody that's really familiar with the neighborhood or the condominium complex, or has vacationed on Maui many times, and they kind of have a pretty good idea of what they're buying. Now, as far as like actually looking at the property, there's so much we can do with technology, with video, with 3D tours. I often FaceTime my clients, do walkthroughs with them. And I mean, I think it's important to have a good buyer's agent, because I feel my responsibility as buyer's agent is just to, especially with sight unseen, just tell somebody every single thing I see that could, possibly be a problem or an issue. And, you always, you never know what's going to be important to somebody, right? What's important to one person might not be as important to somebody else. So it's really important to have a good buyer's agent. I think the biggest thing, though, is understanding the area. Is access to the property along windy road? How far out is it? Is it somewhere you're going to be comfortable with? Does the neighbor across the street drive a school bus and park their school bus right across the street? What do the neighbors' houses look like? I mean, you really want to not only look at the house, because usually the listing agent will have pretty good pictures of the actual property, but you want your buyer's agent to also help you understand the area, the access to the property, and everything that's around it, because I think that really makes a difference too.
Excellent. Thanks, Heidi. Great advice. Scott, how do you deal with your clients who are buying sight unseen? What things can you add to what Heidi's already said?
Yeah, so I actually have this situation right now, which is pretty interesting. So we're in escrow. Not only are we sight unseen, but it's tenant occupied. The tenant won't allow us in for home inspection, won't allow anybody in at all. No appraisal, no TIR, termite inspection, no home inspection. We cannot go through it. The tenant was nice enough to walk through and do basically a Zoom meeting, a FaceTime meeting with us. He did give us access to the outside of the property so we could do some investigation and whatnot. And we made sure we overdid it on that side. But that client had come here. They knew the neighborhood. They knew the area. They had spent a fair amount of time here, so they knew exactly where they wanted. The biggest issue for me with sight unseen is not the property. We can analyze, we can cover the property, give you enough video, give you enough angles, photos, whatever you need, do our due diligence on the document side to pretty much make sure the property itself is what you want. To me, the bigger issue is the surrounding area. If you're not familiar and haven't spent a fair amount of time here and aren't familiar with that neighborhood, the neighborhood you want to be in, I don't recommend it, because there's no way for us as the agent to be able to go through and explain to you several miles worth of the neighborhood details and finite things that you should know. You need to know that already. The property itself to me is not as big of a concern. I can get home inspectors, PV inspector. I can go down to building department, pull plans, permits, the whole 9 yards. That's easy, and show you video. It's the surrounding area. The more familiar you are with the area, the easier I can make that process for you, and while reducing your risk that you're going to make a mistake. If you're going to spend $1 million, $500,000, or whatever, that's a big commitment. And buying a home is putting roots in some place. You want to make sure you're buying the right place and don't regret it once you move here.
Yeah, great point. So that theme is people that have come here often and are familiar with the neighborhood. That's what Heidi said. That's what you said. Dylan, what do you say? What's the advice you have? What's been your experience, success, failures, etc., with sight unseen purchases?
So I totally agree with what all Scott and Heidi said. With having to be familiar with the area, the property, the neighborhoods, all of that stuff. The thing I would like to touch on, especially in the market right now, is what buying sight unseen means to your negotiating ability or your ability to get a property that's competitive. Because what I'm seeing is when there are 25 showings in 2 days and 16 offers, the sight unseen ones kind of get put to the side because the sellers don't feel as comfortable agreeing to a sale to somebody who hasn't even seen the property, even though we've done the video and the 360 tour and they are familiar with the area. If there's a competitive offer that is equal or a little bit better than a sight unseen offer, you're not even going to get considered, especially if it's sight unseen when you're making the offer and then you're going to come and look at the property during the property inspection, because that is like a huge red flag to a seller where, okay, so I'm going to accept this offer, take it off the market, wait 10 days for them to get here. They get here and they decide they don't like it, right? Or they get here and they look at 2 other houses and they like another house better. They cancel on me, right? So it's really a complicating factor in a seller's mindset. And so, if it's a condo complex and you're really familiar with it and it's not competitive, absolutely, we can make that happen. But in this market right now, it really hurts your ability to be competitive when you're making an offer. And I'm seeing that regularly where, we do submit strong sight unseen offers, but sellers just feel more comfortable going with someone who they could see, feel, and touch that had actually been to the property.
Go ahead, Scott.
To touch on that real quick, I mean, yeah, that's absolutely right. The Hawaii purchase contract is very pro buyer. There's many milestones that the buyer has a chance to back out. And that's where the concern gets. And in fact, in that Kaneohe property that I offered on, and I think we were 100 grand over, and we were in second position, and they accepted one from somebody who was sight unseen. And then when they got here, they changed their mind. And now the listing agent calls me, hey, your client's still interested? I called my client to go, nope, we emotionally moved on from that. We're not interested now. So now that listing agent is chasing all those people who were so emotionally invested on trying to get that property, and they mentally walked away from it at that point. He's reeling. It's not in the seller's best interest to take a sight unseen offer because of that risk, because it's not only that contract, but it's everybody else that was interested that started to walk away from that property.
So so what I'm hearing you all say then on this one is that in addition to like making sure you know that you're really comfortable with the neighborhood, you know it well, et cetera, and you're working with a good agent who can represent you correctly and look at and do the other things that Heidi had mentioned, there's a school bus park, across the street, et cetera. In these times right now, in this bananas market, as Dylan is saying, any excuse to sort of, not take you as a serious buyer is going to put someone else ahead of you. So it's really working against you. Therefore, sight unseen is a higher risk, less competitiveness. Yes, Dylan.
And so one more thing, Dylanism, all right, is this is
Love
what sight
it. Give me the
unseen
Dylanism.
So if you're going to be a sight unseen buyer, this is my recommendation to you. And this is for all buyers. I give all buyers this advice, but definitely sight unseen buyers is your online dating when you're buying sight unseen, right? So what happens is you get under contract with somebody, but then you keep looking at properties and then you confuse yourself. You're like, what about this one? And what about that one? And so I tell people, real estate, once you get under contract, you're engaged, right? So you have to stop going to the bar and looking for other properties, right? You gotta be faithful to the property and until you're married, right? So that's one thing that you gotta really think about is stop the online shopping, because you're gonna confuse the heck out of yourself, thinking that maybe this one's better, than the one that I'm under contract with, and second guessing your decision because you haven't actually been there, seen it, felt it, and are really emotionally committed to it, and it can cause a little bit of an issue trying to keep folks in line and making sure that they stick to it, because that's what a seller's thinking in their minds, right? Sellers are thinking that same thing, and that's what gives them apprehension to go with a sight unseen offer.
That's it. Boy, it sounds to me like we have to have a segment about, the psychologically buying, basically buying property online, essentially, right? Which is really what we're saying, right? The dynamics of buying property online. I suppose it's like online dating. I'm far too old. I missed that whole era of online dating by many, many decades. All right. Hey, real quick, just want to let everybody know, make sure if you've got, we got about 8 minutes left. We're going to move into our last segment of the show, which is our deals and our diamonds and deals. So if you got some questions, you need to put them in the chat now, and I'll do the best I can to cover them. We've talked about a lot of topics for today, and they've been really awesome. I want to make sure I get any questions that you haven't had a chance to pose yet. So get those in. So we're going to move on to diamonds and deals. Diamonds and deals is where we have our. Dylan and Heidi and Scott are going to bring up aspirational properties that they think are either a diamond or a deal or both. And it's really a fun segment. I really enjoy it myself. So here we go. Oh man, Heidi wins. Done. Hana. Can't beat Hana. But look at this. So Hana, Hawaii, 2 acres. 449,000. Heidi, that seems like a deal. My God, I thought Hana was high demand. What are we looking at, Heidi?
So, oh, am I muted?
No, you're fine. I'm sorry. My bad. Go ahead.
So 2 acres out in Hana, and Hana is definitely one of those places. If you are thinking about buying in Hana, you should definitely get here, do the drive. It's several hours drive. A lot of it's 1-lane bridges. I mean, it's very remote. It looks like a tiny home here, kind of what we've been talking about. This is actually not a permitted dwelling. It is being marketed as a creative utility structure with a pizza oven. It includes.
Wait. Hold on. This is being marketed as a creative utility structure with a pizza oven. That's what you're buying.
Yes.
Love it. Love it.
It is not a permitted dwelling, but there's the pizza oven.
Love it.
So anyway, just if you're looking for a remote area and really getting away, this is a cool property.
It looks stunning. I mean, Hana is like, Hana is like heaven on earth. I was shocked by 2 acres for 449. It seems to me really a low price. I don't know if that's the way it is in Hana, or if there's something about it, but sure looks like paradise to me. And Kimberly is coming from Kauai. So aloha, Kimberly from Kauai, who apparently also has a pizza oven as well. So good one, Kimberly. Glad to have you with us. All right, Heidi, anything else you want to add about this property? I don't want to move on unless you're done. Are you done?
It has all kinds of fruit trees, mango, passion fruit, apple, bananas. There's avocados. I mean, you're really kind of living off the land.
That's so cool.
But
Awesome.
There are no utilities to this land, so it's off grid. Anyway, it's not even a permitted dwelling. You can just go out there and make pizza.
You can. I love. Thanks, Heidi. Love that. All right. Oh wow, Scott with this Diamond Head home. This is 6 bedrooms, 7 bath. For the low price of $17.975 million. Hey, let me in on this one, Scott.
Yeah, I mean, I love Diamond Head. This is right on the loop. You're a little ways up. This is actually really close to where the original MTV Real World was filming, right down the street. This was many years ago. I don't know if you remember that, when MTV actually got away from videos and started getting into actual shows. But 6 bedrooms, 7.5 baths. It's over 7,500 square feet of land. Of house. I'm sorry. Right at the base of a Diamond Head, and it's over a 1/2 acre parcel right on the ocean. Beautifully done. You can't have a Hawaii home oceanfront without your tiki torches out back. As you can see, it has a nice water feature, tiled pool with all the dolphins, just a lot of details, coffered ceilings, views from every room. They really went, above and beyond on the architectural details, but a phenomenal location. I love Diamond Head. That's my favorite neighborhood. And it's right on the loop. You go out your door, run 4 miles basically around it, and you're right back to your door. But it even has two car garages on separate sides. You come into a porte cochere where you have a covered area where you can park and guests can come down. It's almost like a hotel resort the way it's structured right in the beginning, but a beautiful property.
Man, it's absolutely. I mean, this is probably about as good as it gets, right? I mean, there's a handful of properties that are over $18 million in Hawaii, but not many of them. And this is one of them in a killer, probably, I would say, Scott, arguably, right, one of the most desirable areas in the entire state. Certainly on Oahu for sure. With a killer ocean view. Looks like a resort. That one shot in the upper right-hand corner that overlooks the pool, that looks like a resort right then and there. It's just amazing. And you said 7,500 square foot home
and over 2,000 square feet of covered lanai space. That's not even including open lanai space. But you're a 2-minute Uber ride into Waikiki. But to have 1/2 acre ocean frontage in Diamond Head, that's super rare.
Crazy. It's crazy. Crazy. Awesome. All right. I called it a deal. It's a deal. All right, let's move on to the other part of the other side of the world, the state here, with a 3-bedroom, 2-bath in Kaloko Mauka, 9-bed, 6-bath. Oh man, it's like the one-upmanship over here. Okay, Dylan, what are we looking at here, Dylan?
So this is your ready-to-go family compound. It's on 3 acres. It's actually 2 separate homes. So this is the main home, but there's also a 4-bedroom guest home. So this one's got 9 bedrooms in it. And then there is a 4-bedroom, 3-bath guest home on the property also on the 3 acres. And this is in Kaloko Mauka, which is like literally 10 minutes from the airport up on the hill. This is probably 2,000-foot elevation. You got sweeping views of the coastline. You can see in that bottom picture on the bottom left there. Just a beautiful area, great elevation, nice and cool, good amount of rainfall. So everything stays nice and green, but you're like in this forest, hideaway with this enormous house and lots of room if you have, lots of family, or you want to partner up with another family and live on a compound. This is ready to go. And you can't do this anymore. The current zoning doesn't allow for it. So if you wanted to have 2 legal structures on a property, you got to buy something that is already built. And this is definitely an option if you're looking for something like that. And 2.7 million, not bad. I mean, for 2 nice homes in Kona on 3 acres in a very good location. all
Man.
regularly, all regular utilities, municipal water, and very easy access to Kona town. Costco is less than 10 minutes away. Walmart, Target, all of that stuff. All of the downtown Kailua Kona is less than 15 minutes away. So super cool location.
Man, how cool is that? Hey, I just had an idea. I want to ask everybody watching over here. All right, gang, just for the fun of it, if you could, which property would you buy if you had the money that you needed? Which one would you go for, gang? Would you go for the 3-acre 2 homes in Kona? Would you go for the estate, the $18 million estate on Diamond Head, or would you go for the, what do we call this, Heidi? We would call this the unpermitted oven pizza in pizza oven in Hula. And let's just say that they all cost the same. Let's just take money out of the picture. Which one would you get? I want to know. Is it the big Kona, Diamond Head, or Hana? And Tom says that, okay, here they come, that Diamond Head. Yeah, okay, we'll see as the votes will come in. And while that's kind of happening, let's do this. We're going to move on to. Let me get the right screens over here. We're going to move on to our closing thought, because it is that time. And why don't we do this? Let's well, Dylan, why don't you run up, because you started this whole thing, so we're going to have you finish it, Dylan. What's the closing thought for today?
I'm gonna quote one of my most famous philosophers, Yoda from Star Wars. It's do or do not. There is no try, right? So if you're gonna do something in life, commit to it and do it. Don't ever say I'll try. You're muted, Peter.
Thank you. Yeah, do or do not. There is no try. Classic one. Let's see. The votes are coming over here. So Jeremy says the Kona house, and Mark wants the Kona acreage. Kona. So Kona's like, oh, okay. Diamond Head, Nina, and David Diamond. This is fun. We'll have to do this every time. This will be a good one. Who wins the competition? I think Diamond Head's winning. I'm not sure. It's like close between Diamond Head. Nobody wants to live in the pizza oven on Hana. Okay, sorry about that. Closing thought, Heidi. What's your closing thought for today?
So my closing thought is a quote I heard a long time ago, and this is about the idea of luxury. So true luxury is not about what you have, it's about what you can live without. And what this means to me is simplify your life and focus on what really brings you joy, kind of the Marie Kondo philosophy. And I think that would also be a good philosophy for the buyer who's going to buy that property out in Hana.
Well, you know what? I think Kinaya might want it. Kinaya wants the pizza oven in the Diamond Head home. I'm down for the pizza oven. And funny that you mentioned Marie Kondo. I don't know about you, but all of my clothes are now folded according to Marie Kondo. My t-shirts are rolled up, my pants are rolled up, everything in my socks are rolled up, and I love it. Actually, it's it got me a lot more drawer space. Kevin wants Kona. All right, man. It's a good competition between Kona. This is fun. Okay, Scott, give us your closing thought, buddy.
Yeah, don't mistake movement for achievement. And I always try to keep the overarching goal in sight, and I don't want to get lost. I don't want to lose the forest through the trees, so to speak. And if you're planning on moving to Hawaii, or you're thinking about coming out here, obviously being in the Ohana and learning from what you're doing, Peter, is a big part of that and helping. But don't get stuck in the weeds. Don't over plan. The bigger your plan is, the more it's going to go wrong. And always keep the sight. Try to keep moving that needle forward every day on getting here, if that's what you're looking to do.
Great, man. Y'all have been awesome. I'd have to make up a closing thought right now, because of course I didn't plan to have a closing thought for the show that I'm supposed to be hosting, but that's okay. It doesn't matter, because I think Kona's winning. That's what I think. My closing thought is I think Kona wins. Diamond Head was close. We had a few from Diamond Head, but I think Kona won this one. So that was really a lot of fun. All right, my friends, we're gonna have to say goodbye to you now. It is past our bedtime. The show's kind of over. Dylan from the Big Island, who's joining us, thank you. Heidi, who's with us from Maui, and Scott, who's with us from Oahu. I want to thank you all for coming, and thank you all for being a part of my day. Have a great Aloha Friday. See you all later, folks. Say goodbye around the table there.
Aloha, everyone.